Welcome back to our next session of iMoot 2015. During this 1 hour, Lindy Klein is going to expand upon her previous help desk presentation earlier in this moot. As background, for those of you who might not know Lindy, she's the ID designer for the Indian Council of Nursing. However, in a previous life was also the Sydney-based consultant for Pukunui. She's ultra active in the Moodle community and is currently known, or always known, or as legendarily known as Moodle Chick. Today we're going to be looking at standardisation and support lessons learned. We were just having a chat beforehand and we've decided to, instead of sharing the pain, we're going to spread the love. Over to you, Lindy.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro, Maren. That's setting the bar really high. So folks, this session picks up from the stories from the help desk session that Chris Mewburn and I presented across the earlier sessions of iMoot. We got some really great feedback from that saying, oh, we'd love to know more about the standardisation that you did at ACN that made a difference and the ticketing system that you use and how that makes a difference. So we're basically picking up those threads. It's quite unusual to have an opportunity to do that at iMoot because, of course, most sessions are scheduled well in advance, but unfortunately we've had a presenter unable to kind of fill this session, so I'm very, very fortunate. I get to pick up on some cool stuff that we've already talked about and go, here's some more. There's a bit of a challenge when you do that because everything has to be kind of thrown together on the fly, so I'm hoping the screenshots that I've taken help tell the story. Let's go. So we asked this question in the last help desk session, does Moodle need support? And Shane quite rightly kind of turned it on its head and went, well, should Moodle need support? So there's kind of two aspects to that. Moodle by default, no, I still don't personally think it needs support, and that's after working nearly 18 months on the help desk at Australian College of Nursing. So I probably should know better by now. But you need to support your students. You need to know, and your staff, your students and your staff's level of confidence with technology generally and Moodle in particular. You need to be aware that there's going to be those hot spots for them where they're trying to do something in a hurry that has to be done by a set date and something's gone wrong. And it might just be they've overlooked a button, but because of the time pressure and the frustration with technology in general, suddenly that's a huge overload issue. But we try and make sure we don't get to those ones. This is a screenshot of one of our courses. This is to give you a little bit of context for what we work with our educators. So this is full screen size what a student sees when they first come into this course. It's a bit overwhelming. I've blurred it out for confidentiality reasons, of course. This course is old now and has been redone, so I don't want to name and shame the person who had this. But basically, that introduction text was welcome from the coordinator, pointers to where you should go next and how the course is going to flow. But it always sits at the top of the course. So whether you're in day 1, week 1, or week 20, that's the first thing they're going to see. And that poses some usability issues. Yeah, ouch. It's just not nice. So if we scroll down in that course a little bit, we see topics laid out in themes. So across our graduate certificate courses in particular, our courses tend to run in 5 to 7 themes per course, per subject. And each theme will have a learning guide, and this one is in PDF format. We've transitioned from PDFs to books, which has its pros and cons. We'll get to that in a minute. So it's a pretty big scroll of death there. Our assessments are all in one topic section. It's just not nice, really. So to sum up, that's what we had when we started. Most graduate certificate courses ran like that. But from a help desk perspective, we also offer Cert 4 courses, diploma courses, advanced diploma courses, and 2 freestanding courses that don't really fit any other shape. They are their own unique kind of thing. And none of them look like the others. which is really frustrating when you're trying to provide help desk support and you've got students going, what do you mean you don't know where it is? You're the one supposed to be helping me find it. Okay, so fast forward to the next teaching period, and we've gone, okay, we need to cut down the kind of scroll of death. And we've done it a little bit here. It looks nicer, yes. There's no longer the huge introductory text at the top of the page. So above the fold, for those of you who've worked in media, above the fold is the first thing that the people see. So above the fold of the newspaper, above the fold of the magazine line, that kind of thing. Above the fold or within that first window of your browser, you're seeing the subject information and assessment book, which is the key information that students need. The latest news block on the right-hand side there, which means any announcements that are being made, they're up kind of front and center as students first come into the course. The subject requirements and links off to the library, those are all kind of the key information. The only thing missing from that at first glance is the assessments themselves, which tends to be the first thing our students want to go and have a look at. So as we scroll down in that, those assessments come up as the next topic section. So again, we've still got assessments bunched in one topic section and themes bunched in separate sections again. It looks nicer, but it's still more or less the same structure. So moving on to our current teaching period with this one, and we're trialling a new layout. This looks completely different. Because this is only running on a couple of our courses. No, actually the theme is exactly the same, which I find really interesting. The theme across the side for all those three courses I've just shown is exactly the same. Themes can do an awful lot on your courses, but in this particular instance, we haven't used that power. And there's some really good reasons for that, but I'll come to them in a minute. Because this is running on only some of our courses, we felt it appropriate to let our students know this is a subject that's trialing a new subject layout. So we've got that notification block right up the top. The painful part of that is it takes up, I'd reckon, about a fifth to a quarter of the page space there. And that's pretty valuable real estate to be using with a notification that's only really relevant as they come in the first time. That's how we've chosen to do it. No, I'm kind of ambivalent about that. The quick tabs block, which is below that, has a tab link to 4 different topic sections. Now, to make this work, we've got a couple of different things at play here. I've just said that that's a block, but it's sitting right above a topic section, which is kind of magical. Yes, Tabitha, I agree. We really need to make the real estate at the top of the page a lot smaller, considering it's only useful. It's coming from a print media background from my perspective. You have banners up the top so that everyone has that sense that they're on the same site, they're in the same space, but it's taking up a lot of space there that could be better used. So I've just mentioned the quick tabs block there that's sitting above the topic section in the middle of the page, and historically Moodle hasn't been able to do that. That is a theme adjustment. We have 2 additional spaces that blocks can sit in on our pages at the top of the course section and right at the bottom above the footer, but below the lowest topic section on the course. Sorry, I'm just reading Marin's comment. Rather than 3 lines of text, how about a new layout icon, which is a hyperlink off to the right of the first topic? I'm not sure I followed there, so I'm just going to continue on with the session, and maybe Marin, you can elaborate a bit more on that, because I'm keen to know. Our quick tabs are rendered as CSS, so there's not an image having to load there. It's pure CSS, which makes it a little bit quicker in the browser. Yes, okay, got it. The notification text would definitely be a lot better over as a tab. Got it right. Below that is the latest news block, which again is just your standard Moodle latest news block, but because it's sitting right at the top, we have the most recent post on that forum coming up in that block. That way the students are kind of being hit with whatever the course coordinator thinks is the most important piece of information they need to know at the moment as soon as they get into the course. we still have coordinators getting used to using the latest news and the news forums. So I think that's going to improve over time, but I'm going to be interested to see what the uptake is. And below that, we've got 4 different sections: orientation, help, learning materials, and assessment. So you're seeing that the structure there hasn't changed so much, but the format we're using to support that is the rather wonderful flexible sections, which is being maintained by Marina Glancy. And I can't speak highly enough of this format. It really does exactly what we need it to. One of its best features is the ability to sit a topic section within a topic section. And I've just realized this screenshot doesn't show it, which is really frustrating. I encourage you to have a look at it. It's really quite a useful feature, particularly for our learning materials section. So now we have one topic section, which holds 5 to 7 subsections, one for each theme of our graduate certificate subjects. That condenses that scroll of death. And it also means, because the quick tabs block is fixed to appear on every page within the course, it doesn't matter what activity you're on, what book section you're in, you can quickly access any of the orientation, help, learning materials or assessment sections with one click. Now that was reported back to us as being something that was really important to students, but we found on the first round of evaluation for this, they either haven't noticed or they're taking it for granted. It hasn't even rated as a bonus for them. Tabitha's saying we used to have images in sections that would sit to the side of all the activities, but it now sits above and pushes the activities down. We know there are reasons for the change, but still hate it. Yep, I can totally relate to that. You make one improvement, and if you're lucky, people notice that it was an improvement, and if you're neutral, they notice it was an improvement and still report you 3 bugs, and if you're negative, they just report the 3 bugs. Yeah, it's fun. Within that help section, something that's really helped our support systems is a standardized help information panel. So this panel is included within the help topic section. It's in a label. It can't be edited by the educators. And the reason for that is students were receiving conflicting information on how to access our support systems. So some tutors would say, no, you need to ask your coordinator that question, it's not for me. Some coordinators would say, no, you actually need to ask that back of your tutor, it's not my area. Both would say, talk to tech support for everything. And sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes tech support can be the quickest way to fix something. What we've tried to do is let our students know if it's a content-related issue. For example, if you don't understand a concept within the content, that's something for your tutor in the first instance. If they can't help you or you can't get through to them, then you need to contact your coordinator and let them know there's a communication breakdown there. If it's something to do with the administration of the course, so you can't meet a due date, you need to let both your tutor and your coordinator know. The coordinator can change the due date, the tutor can allow you an extension. So the two need to work together. If it's that you can't access the assignment to submit something to it because it doesn't have a submit button or it's grayed out and you can't get to it, then you probably need to talk to tech support. So we're trying to help all our audiences understand the delineation between those things, and in ensuring that they can't change the advice given, we're trying to make that more consistent and easier for everyone. Ultimately, that's about improving the student experience. You know, and anyone who's used tech, or in Australia it tends to be telephone systems or internet systems, we know the pain of calling up tech support and going, yes, but can you just fix my problem? Various companies provide you with various levels of service in that regard. Something else I want to flag here is the policies and forms link. We had a lot of educators worried that students wouldn't be able to access the policies or forms that were relevant in their course. Yes, I've already rebooted my computer. I have, in fact, turned it on and turned it off and turned it on again. So next step, absolutely, Joshua. Our educators had a nasty habit of uploading PDFs of forms and policies directly to their courses. And this meant that if the policy had been updated, their version of it hadn't been. And it made for a lot of file bloat. So Pukunui have very kindly given us a custom report that helps us track how much space our backup files are taking. We're working towards analysing how much space files within courses are taking as part of that backup space. So it's interesting to see where that bloat starts creeping out. As a remedy to this at a system level, we have a repository folder in our Moodle data folder, and we store copies of the most up-to-date forms and policies there. We ask staff and tutors to link to those policies because they're the most up-to-date versions. So if they do feel the need to have an extra link to a policy or form, at least it's linking to a document rather than uploading it in there again and again and again. From a site management perspective, that's proving challenging, but hopefully it will improve as we go, and this is one of those steps towards improvement. Okay, this slide is just demonstrating that quick tabs block is available within the forums activity. So this is something that we had issues with navigation, that you could give instructions on the front page of the site, but you couldn't guarantee that those instructions would be remembered when you're 2 or 3 levels down into an activity. So this makes life a little bit easier for us. You'll also notice right at the top here, there's a link back to orientation. That's part of the flexible sections format. It will actually provide a default link back to the section that you came from to get to this activity, which I love. I find that really useful. Yeah, Tabitha, I can't speak highly enough of it. I'm finding it a really useful format. The only downside for us with using flexible sections is it doesn't have an orphaned activities format. An orphaned activities section. Because it will always allow you to add on more sections and add on more sections, it never has the need for an orphan. So for those of you who are using sneaky ways of linking icons to activities in orphan activities, yeah, unfortunately flexible sections doesn't do that. So the trickery has to stop. No, Rob, flexible sections is a course format plugin. It's readily available from moodle.org download plugins area. Yeah, a lot of people use that orphan activities trick a lot. What we found by using flexible sections and HTML blocks, we're actually getting something similar happening there. Because the flexible section can contain any of the text activity links, we can use a HTML block to add the nice shiny glossies. So I'm kind of experimenting with ways of doing that and still getting the glossy look without the dense text links. The text links are still provided for students if they want it. So that may be more usability. I'm not sure. That's still being experimented with. Obviously not with live students. I don't think I need to say that with this audience, but just in case people are watching the video. So in essence, that revised tabs structure, we've got the welcome on the news forum. So it's a central place for a welcome message instead of a page or a PDF file or various ways of doing it. We're trying to get our educators to use the same method. Because it's on the news forum, we can have it showing up in the recent news block, so it's already there as part of the way Moodle functions. Yeah, Tabitha, it's usually because they can't make it look as pretty as they want, or at least that's my experience of it. So orphan activities can be pretty, but it is a lot of extra work. Our courses, though, are still basically the same structure. It's just that now that structure is being made consistent across our site. So even our outlier courses that run in a weeks format rather than a theme by theme format, they're coming on board with this new look and feel, which means hopefully we can provide more uniform support for everyone. As an instructional designer, I look at this and go, well, there's some pros and cons from this approach. The pro is the consistency means it's a uniform experience for our students. There's less cognitive load for them to process to just get to what they need to get to. But it's also not particularly inspiring from a learning activities perspective, and my heart's really in engaging activities for students. So I'm struggling with this a bit with my colleagues at work because we have to balance sorry, I'm just reading Joshua's comment. Maybe instruct teachers in that situation to use a hidden label to notate that they've used orphaned activities for the next person. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Hidden resource, like hidden pages and hidden labels can be a great way to kind of provide the README file for your course. Just keep in mind with hidden labels, though, they can add extra load time even for the students who can't see them. And when it's really, really laggy loading time, sometimes they'll show up for a student before the page is finished loading. Or that's an experience I've had quite a while ago now, but it's worth keeping in mind. Don't put it there if it really shouldn't be seen by a student. I tend to put them in hidden pages if that's the case, because it might show the title for the page, but it won't show all the detail. Sorry, coming back on point, the activities we tend to run in our courses are largely forums, especially in question and answer format, and assignments. Some of us have quizzes running. Most of those are kind of asynchronous individual activities. Quizzes are used because they don't take as much time for tutors and course coordinators to mark. Assignments are used because they're relatively straightforward to mark. When I've tried to introduce the workshop module, it's been met with interest. My educators are keen to try new stuff, but as they get through using it, it's meeting some resistance because it does take a little more to run. Rob's just asked, did you get resistance from instructors when you took away the freedom to use whatever format they wanted? Yes, in a word. And still getting resistance. Resistance is futile. I try and be empathetic with my educators because ultimately they're the ones who have to manage whatever systems we put in place. They're at the coalface with students. So it's futile for me to go, no, thou shalt have only this. That's not going to work. At the same time, it's taken probably 18 months to 2 years of going through the painful bits of running a course for them to realise it's really not working when everyone can do anything they want. We will actually, Josh, that's a really good comment. We will add your technological distinctiveness to our own. So I actually wanted to kind of tangent from that. The way we've adapted to that resistance is to go, we're not trying to crush your creativity. I'm really not. I say we, but I'm the main site admin for both of our sites, so forgive me if I move between the two. I personally really want our educators to get creative with Moodle, to experiment with the activities, to see how they work, to get comfortable with them, to come up with new ways of engaging their students. And I want that as much as anything, because I've been an online student and I get really bored with PDF quiz. Oh, and here's a forum. There's nothing wrong with that approach per se, but I just think maybe there might be a better way of doing it. It does require more time from the people maintaining the course, though. So for our educators, we allow them a sandpit course each. So they've all got their own course where they can do whatever they want. They can add whatever activity, configure it whatever way they want, they can experiment. And I encourage them by saying, look, please use your sandpit course. Show me what it is that you're trying to do. If you can show me what it is rather than tell me this is the way it has to be done, maybe we can come up with a better way all round. If you show me what your purpose is, maybe I can help you find the right tools to accomplish it. I am more of the tools and systems expert at our organisation. Our educators are still getting familiar with some of the, not necessarily more advanced, but certainly more diverse tools within Moodle. And yes, Marion, that's absolutely right. You can still put the same structure in place. People are still going to bring their own personality to it. So I encourage our educators to go on the news forum and post a welcome message there. And I post a message that is hidden from students because we use forum timed posts. It's set outside of the time range that students can see it. And I post a template message there as a guide to, this is the kind of information you should be including in the welcome. Adapt it to your own purposes. Some of them will use that word for word. Others will not use it at all. and that's okay. As long as they're getting a nudge in the direction of giving some guidance to their students, I'm fine with that. Our tutors are paid roughly, and I do say roughly, $200 per student that they tutor across, at the moment, a 14 to 20 week teaching period. That's not a lot of money. It doesn't buy you a lot of hours for contacting students and being on hand for them constantly. And if you're trying to build really engaging activities, you need an educator or a tutor who's going to be available to engage. So our tutors, when we design assessments and activities, we have to keep in mind that our tutors don't have a lot of time to pay attention to every single student and balance that against making sure students get feedback that's accurate and timely. This is a really hard juggling act. We haven't come up with a perfect means of doing it by any stretch of the imagination, but it does tend to be restrictive on what we try. This means we have a lot of assignments and a lot of very contained forms. Okay, moving on. So let's look at how that impacts support, and this is taken directly from the help desk presentation we did earlier in iMoot. In terms of providing effective support, our educators are likely to be the first people within a course that students are going to talk to. They may call up and they'll get reception, and that's where the checklist for our reception staff becomes really useful. You know, what course, what username, what email address, what's the name of the activity or resource you're having an issue with. That kind of information makes it a lot easier and quicker to get a result for a student. But if they're really getting frustrated and getting anxious that it's going to impact their results, they're going to talk to their coordinator before they talk to a techie. So we encourage our educators, don't send your students to us with a tech problem that's actually affecting all your students. If you can contact us, and as techs we'll work with you, the coordinator, to resolve that issue in your course. That way you learn what caused the issue so it doesn't come up again, and your students get to build the relationship with you rather than, oh dear, we have an XKCD competition going there. I think there's going to have to be an XKCD badge on this one. If you can pick up what that is, that's awesome. Thank you, Joshua. I'll go and have a look at that when the session's done. So that way we're trying to manage our escalation routes. It's really quite inundating for the tech support to have 30 different students report the same problem in the same course when we know that the root cause is a setting that was overlooked, or they haven't completed a conditional activity, which should be guided by the educator, not by tech support. Yeah, yes, of course I've seen that one. Okay, so moving along then. So this again is a slide from our help desk support area, but I think it's really worth repeating. You really need to define your roles and what their boundaries are and where they go when they need help. So it's no good me telling reception that they're responsible for resetting an assignment for students to attempt again, because A, they don't know how, and B, it's not part of their job description. It's quite inappropriate for them to feel like they have to do that. When we first started out, we did have a couple of our reception staff saying, has my job description been changed? Is this, now that we're using this online learning, is that something I'm supposed to do? And it's not, but the communication wasn't as clear as it could have been. We've resolved at least that much of things now. We're still trying to make the flow a little bit easier. We still have a little bit of overlap between what student services addresses and what tech support addresses, and who the coordinators are supposed to escalate to. So we're gradually clarifying and resolving that. I should mention ACN has just been through a massive realignment process, so it's understandable that there's confusion in those roles at the moment. We've lost probably half of our student support staff as a result of that realignment. We've lost one of our help desk staff. And no, actually 2 of our main help desk staff. So we've been cut in half the help desk as a result of that realignment. It's going to get ouchy. Which is why we use and joyfully recommend the ticketing system. So in the very dark days, we used an email address that had roughly 4 or 5 people who could access the email that was sent to that address. And none of us knew which person was accessing that. We used coloured labels in Outlook to try and nominate this person is looking after this email. That's really terrible. Please don't do it. There was no way of tracking how long we'd spent responding to queries. There was no way of realising that actually this query was being dealt with by another help desk person from a different student, but that was the same issue. There was no way of merging those emails together. It was horrible. Please don't do it. And if you're doing it, please stop. Freshdesk is actually free up to 3 licenses. Russian roulette help desk. The lovely Chris Newbert has just joined us in the chat there. Yeah, that was just tremendous, Chris. I loved every minute of it. I'm not at all scarred for life by that as I rock in my corner. So Tabitha, I can't speak highly enough of Freshdesk then. We had to wait for our IT department to acknowledge that the problems we were going through were worthy of being dealt with by the ticketing system. It starts off being free, Maren. There are extra licenses that you can gain with it, so it does have a paid component. From memory, and that's why I've put the website there because I recommend you go and have a look at it. From memory, it starts with 3 licensed users who can do everything, but you would have to double check. We have more than 3 help desk people. Or rather, we have more than 3 ticketing people. So thanks, Josh. It kind of needed to be a paid solution, but at least our IT department were willing to recognise, yes, we need a paid solution to this that does it elegantly and efficiently. We've only recently changed to Freshdesk. The system we had before, from memory, was an open source system, but it wasn't smooth. It wouldn't work the way we needed it to. Yeah, I'd have to agree too, Chris. I've used 4 or 5 different ticketing systems over the last 7 odd years, and Freshdesk has made life really, really lovely. So enough promoing on Freshdesk. Let's have a look at what it actually does. These 2 screenshots that we're about to see, this one and the following one, I've taken directly from their website. I went to take screenshots of our own system and then realised actually there's some rather sensitive information in our own system on every ticket that I could look at in the last day. So I don't want to kind of share that and breach any kind of confidentiality or privacy issues there. But this is taken just from their website, but it does do the job. You'll notice in the top right-hand corner, it displays a status for the ticket. I love ticket statuses. It tells me what's happening at a glance. If it's open, someone needs to be attending to this. I use pending when I've picked up the ticket and I'm still looking at what does this need to do. Other kind of statuses that we can use, we're waiting on a response from the user, which is really good because it shows us in our ticketing system, no, this has been waiting for the user for a week. It's not sitting with us. It's not actually needing anything from us until the user gets back to us. Awaiting approval is another one that I've had good success with using. Pardon me, a solution, particularly when we've got queries from staff coming through the ticketing system, a solution that I might need to implement would go across the whole system. I need to make sure that I'm not negatively impacting anything any other staff member is doing. And an example of this, and I may have used it already in our help desk session, we had one subject coordinator email in with a request that only the coordinators be allowed to post on the news forum because her tutors were just being really noisy on it and she was feeling like her messages were being drowned out. Now keep in mind that in this subject, the tutors had their own forum dedicated to tutor-student communication. That's exactly what it was for. So the tutor concerned in this particular instance had just overlooked where she should have been posting. Permissions meant that she could post in a space that maybe she shouldn't have been able to post in. I dutifully went and turned it off. So our tutor roles could no longer post in the news forum. And within 5 minutes, I had 3 subject coordinators emailing the ticketing system going, my tutor can't post in the forum anymore. What's happened? So the lesson learned from that, don't have an itchy trigger finger with system changes. Even if you're trying to help, make sure you check with the managers involved, the staff involved. This wasn't an especially urgent problem. It was causing pain, but only for one educator. Yeah, I know everyone's been there, and I catch myself doing it every once in a while. Fortunately, it is only every once in a while. These days, I have my own checklist by the desk. Does this involve a system change? Yes. Have you spoken to a manager? If no, do not make system change. You know? If yes, has that manager spoken to the other managers that will be affected, and so on and so forth. I don't know what HEAT is, Tabitha. I'm assuming from the context that it's another ticketing system. Mantis, I think, is another one too. Oh, yeah, Rob. People love it when I change system roles as well. I get so much love. It's just, I have been known to disappear into a different floor of the building for half an hour or so, just so people can't find me at my desk. It's not that I don't want to hear. I like your acronym, Maren, that's awesome. It's not that I don't want to hear feedback on how the roles are working, but feedback can be constructive or it can be just critical and horrible and reactive. So rather than suffering through reactive feedback, I encourage people to let me know through the ticketing system if this change has caused any issues. Sometimes, yes, it's okay, I'll change it back. Sometimes, look, no, I'm sorry, that's the way it's got to be. And I know it adversely impacts you, but it's making changes that impact other people and they need it. Oh, no, it doesn't help you much at all. Tabitha, that's initially what our IT department did. They had their own ticketing system. So they kind of went, yeah, we don't have a problem. And they set up the shared email box. We had to point out the pain that the shared email box was creating, and it helped that a member of the IT department was sharing that pain on the inbox. Yeah. The database in Moodle does sound like an intriguing solution. Yeah, so some of the other features here, private notes, the ability to flag with other IT staff, there's more happening on this ticket than we can actually make visible to the person who reported the issue. I'm trying to think of a good example from context. Yeah, no, Maren, I've actually, yes, it's tempting to put them in there, but I've encouraged the colleagues I work with, don't put anything in a private note that you wouldn't be happy for the user on that ticket to see or their manager to see. Yeah, it's the same rule. If you're putting it in writing, make sure that it's not going to come back and bite you later. And I'm a little bit paranoid on that, but yeah, you shouldn't need to say anything there that you wouldn't say to their face. It's more, you don't want to have to include the background on that ticket on every follow-up email. So I don't want the email trail from this to just span for decades. I need the quick bullet points of what the background to the issue is so that my colleagues who are working on the ticket are informed, but they don't necessarily need to know it blow by blow. If it's a student who we know is being an issue in other realms, we might mention on the private note, student is currently going through the student management subcommittee. And that's essentially code for this student may have more problems going on than we can relate here. Yeah, I'm sure every help desk team develops their own code for how to convey information that might be a bit sensitive. Certainly, Chris and I think we have an understanding of certain keywords in private notes. No further questions are required unless it's over the phone. We do try and make sure tickets are cross-linked, so if this issue is going to impact on another issue reported over somewhere else, we include the ticket numbers in that private note so that we can keep track of all the impacts that might go on there. Another field that we particularly love is the ticket properties. Most users believe their issue is at least high, if not urgent. We've tried indicating to users that an issue is urgent if it's breaking the system. So if every user on the site is going to be affected, that's urgent. If the majority of users on the site are going to be affected, that's urgent. If you and your tutor are going to be affected and your weekend somewhat disrupted, that's probably not urgent. We understand that it might be urgent to you, but across the whole system, it's probably not. We have had users resist us changing the status of, or the priority levels on the ticket. It doesn't stop me changing it right back to whatever I perceive it to be. So that priority we're using as IT to gauge when does this ticket get addressed in the queue. If it's a really busy day, exactly. Maren, thank you for paraphrasing. Tabitha, that's quite right. If they can't log in, if all the users can't log in, that's urgent. If one user can't log in, we try and treat it as urgent because it's going to have an immediate impact on that user and their experience, but it depends on the other tickets that might be live at the time. So that's been an interesting conversation with our educators especially, who tend to think if it impacts them and their students, it is urgent. Trying to get them to see that the site is bigger than one course or one group of users can be a challenge at times. We try and have empathy when we're having that conversation. Okay, next slide. So we also love this feature of Freshdesk. It's the team inbox or the dashboard page. And that allows us to see what's happening with tickets at a glance. So what we've just said about status, priority, and who's dealing with it, that information is all available from the first welcome page that we as support desk people go into. So if I see a ticket that's marked urgent, open, and unassigned, I'm going to jump on that like a grenade. If I discover that it's not actually urgent, I'll make sure that the priority is changed and the status is set to whatever's appropriate and the agent is assigned. We're lucky with our system in that every agent can assign any other agent. So an agent is a help desk support staff member within the categories that they have allocated to them as part of their workload. So I can only allocate tickets within my category. Sorry, I should rephrase that. I can allocate tickets within my category and I can push out those tickets that aren't related to my category. Occasionally we'll get a request coming through that's to do with website support, but it's not one of the websites I'm responsible for. So I'll shift that to a different category within our ticketing system so that the people responsible for that site can see the ticket and deal with it. And we try and do that as quickly as possible. The filtering on this is pretty darn good though. We're unfortunate in that we've got 3 websites linked to one email address, which is filtering to one category. So it needs to be a little bit more fine-tuned, but we're working on that. I'm aware we're kind of coming up to time, so I'm going to move on to the last slide here, which is just thank you and asking for questions. But I'm quite happy to keep talking on this for as long as people want to hang around. I think support roles and instructional design roles are intrinsically linked, and if you divide them too far apart, you end up having negative implications for both sides. Ultimately, both of those teams are working towards the best possible student experience. We're aiming for the same goal, so we should be able to talk to each other about it clearly and empathetically. And this is the point where people can share their own experiences. Well, thank you, Joshua. I'm hoping people learn from our pain, because it has been quite painful. We don't like pain. Oh, my pleasure, Tabitha. Thank you very much for coming into the session. Pleasure, Rob. Thanks for coming along. Oh, Merrin, I think I missed your question. How do the users put in a support request? Do they mostly come by email, or did you find if you put a button into a Moodle course, they become trigger happy and constantly put in requests? We didn't put in the button. Our email support address pipes directly to our ticketing system. That email address is listed on our Contact Us page, and within, as we saw earlier in the presentation, within the help section of each of our courses that are moving to the standard template. But because it's not a button, it's not even a mail to link, they need to type it in and use it to send us a request. We've also strategically placed it as, I think, the third or fourth item on the help section within the course. So the first items there are your coordinator, who's your first port of call, your tutor, who should be your kind of quasi first and second port of call, contacting other students on the forums and asking your question there. So peer support is awesome. If all else fails, please call help desk. Does that address your question, Mary?
Yes, thanks, Lindy. Well, this has been a great session. Thank you so much for stepping in at short notice.
My pleasure, really.
Explore this further. I hope that the other people who came to the first presentation on the help desk will actually see this one now pop up and be able to catch it on recording. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Bye.